Hello, photographers. Here we go. This is a new sort of thing that I'm trying here. So a live stream tutorial. I am in fact live, which is good. So here is what I'm planning for this evening. I'm going to show you how you can batch watermark photos on your iPad. I should change the angle of this. I forgot to do that. Oop, that was a little bouncy, right? So you can actually see the iPad as well. How to batch watermark photos on your iPad using Siri shortcuts. Because you can batch watermark photos on your iPad using Lightroom, right? But it's terrible. And let me show you what that looks like. So if you go into your menu, hey Frank, how's it going, bud? Peter and Steve are here as well. So if you go into your menu in Lightroom and you go to the, where is it? We got to go into the settings somewhere. So we go into the settings and we look at export somewhere. I don't even know, sharing options. You can turn on this watermark, right? And you can customize this watermark a little bit, okay? But all you can do is put a text watermark in here. You can't put a stylized watermark of any kind. All you can do is say, okay, I want to put this thing, I want it to be this big. You can change your color and your font, and you can do some stuff here, but you have very limited ability to actually do anything with this watermark other than have it be text. Now, if a person's okay with that, that's fine, right? But if you want something better, if you want to use a customized watermark that you have created, this is just not going to do the job for you. So I have a solution for that. I actually created a solution for that using the Siri Shortcuts app. So I'm going to close this out, and we are going to go into the Shortcuts app. Now, if you're not familiar with Shortcuts, Shortcuts allow you to create automation tools for your iOS devices. I'm obviously using the iPad. You can actually also do this on an iPhone as well. And what I've come to realize is this is sort of a way of programming, honestly. Although I'm not programming in the traditional sense where I'm writing code, it is actually program. You just do it with building blocks. So I'm going to show you the actual batch watermark shortcut and the different steps that are involved in this and how to set up and how to use this thing. Now, the idea is you have a block of images that you want to watermark with your customized watermark. And what you need to do is put those images in a folder. Now, if you want to use this shortcut that I'm actually going to be selling, it's a $3 shortcut. If you want to grab the shortcut, if anybody's interested in grabbing the shortcut, you can grab it at this link right here, which I'll pop into the chat. Grab the shortcut here. It needs to go into a specific folder, and that particular folder is in the Shortcuts iCloud folder, right? Because we have iCloud Drive here, and then we have this Shortcuts folder. And it has to be that folder because this sandboxes what happens with the Shortcuts app and protects the rest of your iCloud data. Now, as part of the shortcut process, I actually created a setup tool. So before we even look at the actual batch watermarking shortcut, we're just going to quickly look at the setup tool. So I have this batch watermarking setup shortcut right here. And if we go into that shortcut, it's actually a pretty simple shortcut. It is going to create four folders actually. It's going to create a folder called watermarking, which you can see with this action right here called create folder. And then it's also going to create a folder inside of that called watermark, which is the second action right here that you can see. So inside of the shortcuts folder, it creates a watermarking folder, and then it creates the watermark folder. It creates another folder here called to be watermarked. That's where the photos need to go that you want to watermark in this folder called to be watermarked. And then finally, the destination folder for the watermarked images called watermarked images, oddly enough, right? And then finally, it gives you a message that tells you some information about the shortcut. Now, I'm going to switch over to my Files app. Hey, CyberDoc, how's it going, bud? By the way, if anybody has questions about any of this as I'm going through it or using Siri shortcuts or anything else, go ahead and let me know in the chat. I will happily answer those questions. And then at the end, I'll open it up for general questions about editing photos and managing them on your iPad. So inside of iCloud Drive, if we look inside my shortcuts folder, you'll see I currently don't have those folders. They don't exist right now. So the first thing we're going to do is run the shortcut to set up the folders. And if a person decides they want to buy this shortcut from me, you get all of the shortcuts you need. You get the setup shortcut, you're going to get the main shortcut, and there's actually another shortcut that comes with it that I'll explain in a moment. So we're going to go here to the Shortcuts app, and we're going to run this batch watermarking setup shortcut. And I'm going to close out of it and just tap it to run, because this is what it'll look like when you run it on your own iPad or iPhone. And whoops, I hit the wrong shortcut. I'm canceling it out. I need to run the setup shortcut, not the actual watermarking. So we're going to run the batch watermarking setup shortcut right here. And you can see this message pops up here. It says, only run this once. This shortcut sets up the folders that you need for the batch watermarking shortcut. You only need to run the shortcut one time. After running this, you can delete this shortcut. Now, you don't have to delete the shortcut if you don't want to. As an example, if you want to be able to set it up on a new device, like if you want to just keep the shortcut, you can, but you should only ever run it once unless for some reason you end up deleting those folders and you need to make those folders again. So I'm going to hit OK. And it tells me the folder setup is complete, they've been created, and it gives you some additional instructions. The key here being that before you can use the batch watermarking shortcut, you need to place your watermark image in the following folder. And it tells you which folder, which is iCloud Drive, Shortcuts, the watermarking folder, and then the Watermark Folder. And then it says the watermark should be a PNG file with a transparent background. So I'm going to hit OK, and that shortcut is going to finish. Hello, Antonio. Will a shortcut work with iPad OS 13 since a lot of shortcuts in iOS 12 got broken in the migration to 13? That's a good question. I can't. So I've tested it on my, I don't have it down here, but I do have an iPad that's running iPad OS 13. And for me, it's not broken. But the thing is, I can't, because it's still in beta, I can't promise that it's going to work. But what I do promise is that if it doesn't work for you, I give you your money back. If a person decides to buy my shortcut and it doesn't work and it's broken, you'll get your money back. So it's something that you can buy and try if you want. And if you decide it's not going to work for you or it literally is broken, I will very happily refund the money, because I don't want people to buy a thing from me and not have it to work, because that sucks. Nobody likes that. So again, it's working for me, but I can't promise it just because we're still in beta and things are in flux. Once we get to the official release of iPad OS, I will make sure that all of my shortcuts work on iPad OS/iOS 13 and deal with that transition. So with that, we're now going to take a look at the other two shortcuts. So the other two shortcuts are sitting right over here on the bottom. We have the SHP batch watermark images and the SHP watermark preview module. Now, this watermark preview module is a shortcut that you'll need to install, but it's one that you'll never actually run yourself. You'll never come in here and say, I want to watermark preview, and just tap that shortcut to run it. What happens is, when you run the watermark images shortcut, if you decide you want to make a preview, then that will trigger the preview module for you. And the reason I had to do this is because this was the only way for me to create a loop that you could repeatedly preview the image until you were happy with the shortcut, with the placement of the watermark. I couldn't do it any other way. So installing these is, instructions for installing these comes if you decide to purchase the shortcut. So I'm going to walk you through actually running this shortcut now and show you how this works and show you what it looks like. So the very first thing you need is your watermark, because you have to have a custom watermark to put in there. So you may already have a watermark, but your watermark needs to be a PNG file with a transparent background. So I'm going to create one right now, and it doesn't have to look like the one I'm about to create, but you can create any kind of watermark you want as long as the file is a PNG file with a transparent background. So we're going to go with a new document here, And we'll just go with this standard transparent background. This is a 4x6 at 300 DPI. That's great. The thing you'll want to do is use a larger watermark file to start with, because you can always size that watermark down and have it look good. But if you want it big on a bigger image, it won't look good if you have a small watermark and you enlarge it. So a 4x6, roughly, that'll work out. And it's a transparent background. So we're going to hit OK. And I'm going to make a super, super simple watermark. All I'm going to do is draw my signature on here. Hello, Tom Roper. How are you doing? So I'm going to turn the flow up to 100 on my brush. My opacity's up. I want my hardness up all the way. And we'll go with a 10 pixel brush to see how that looks. And the color is black, and I'm just going to sign my name. That's how I sign my name, just like that. Right? That looks pretty good. Now I'm going to just quickly crop it so that it has, I don't have all of that excess space on the top and bottom. So we want to go with a unconstrained crop, and I'm just going to drag this up a bit and drag it down and drag it in a little bit, and I think that'll be good. And I apply my crop, and now I have my watermark. So with this watermark, I'm going to export this as a PNG file to preserve the transparency. The name of the file doesn't matter. Tim, buddy, how you doing? The name of the file doesn't matter. If you want to, you can call the file watermark, which is what I'm going to name it, but it doesn't matter what it's named. The shortcut will find the watermark file as long as you put it in the right folder. So we're going to call it watermark, and then we're going to share it, and we're going to save the files, and I'm going to go into iCloud Drive, and then I'm going to go into Shortcuts, and then I'm going to go into Watermarking and put it in the Watermark folder. We're going to hit Add, and it saves it there. So we're going to go and verify that that is actually there. We go to Watermarking, Watermark. There's my watermark. Perfect. We are ready to actually start using the shortcut. So the first thing you need if you want to run a batch watermark is a batch of images. And those batch of images need to go into the folder that we created. So I'm just going to pick a bunch of images. I'm going to run a filter here and choose flagged photos that have 5 stars, because those are my final edits. And I'm just going to grab a bunch of photos here. So we're going to hold to trigger the select, and then we're just going to grab a bunch. We're just going to go bloop. And there we go. That should be enough. Now we're going to run the export here. And when you export out of Lightroom, we've discussed this before, you have limited terrible options. I'm going to save these to files, and you can only do 2048 pixels or maximum available. I'm going to choose maximum available. It's going to take a minute here to render these files, and then once it does, it'll bring up the save dialog and ask us where we want to save them. So while we're waiting, how is everybody doing tonight? I see Tim and everybody else joining. Do you guys have any questions about these shortcuts that I've been making, or using shortcuts on your iPad to automate some of the tasks? I've been having a ton of fun experimenting with and learning about and creating these shortcuts. I'm really enjoying it. And if you have a thing that you've been trying to do on your iPad that you think could be automated, let me know, because it's entirely possible. I could actually make a shortcut and I could solve a problem that a lot of people might be having that we don't even realize. Hey, I'm bald and beautiful. I think it's probably both, CyberDoc. I would say it's both. Okay, so we need to put this into the to be watermarked folder. So once again, it's in the shortcuts folder. It's in the watermarking folder inside of there, and it's the to be watermarked folder. Edgar, can you show where to put the watermark? Yes, I can. So that's what I just did. I will show you once again. So let me do this export here to finish this. And that export is taken care of. So where you need to put the watermark, or actually I should say, Edgar, do you mean on the image, or do you mean where the image goes in the folder? Yes, Antonio, I do too. I think shortcuts are amazing. So Edgar, if you can clarify what you mean by where to put the watermark, I just want to make sure I'm actually answering the question. And real quick, I'll just drop it in the chat again while we're waiting here. If you want to get this shortcut, you can get the shortcut. Get the batch watermarking shortcut here. Okay. So while I'm waiting for Edgard, I'm actually going to go ahead and run the shortcut now because we have the images. See, look at what I did. I forgot to turn off the Lightroom watermark, which is terrible. So let's select all of these and delete all of these. Go back to Lightroom, go back to the settings, turn off the watermark in the sharing options, and reselect a bunch of images and re-export them. Sorry about that, gang. So we'll just grab a bunch of these. We'll go up here and grab a couple more of these. Okay, that's enough right there. So let's do this export again and save the files again, maximum available again. I would love a top 5, top 10 shortcuts video from you. Okay, I could do something like that. Now, question for that, Antonio. Do you mean like my top 5 shortcuts that I've made for myself? Because I've got a whole mess of them that I've made, and I'd be happy to share those and do that. And I'm also happy to go into detail and show you how these shortcuts are made. In fact, that's one of the things I wanted to do is spend a little bit of time showing you how I made this, because I am selling it, right? But if you want to make it for yourself, you most certainly can. And I wouldn't want to try to like hide that from you. So the folder that I wanted to go in is already selected to be watermarked. So I'm going to hit add, and they're going to be saved there. And now we have images that are ready for me to put my watermark on. All of these images are sitting here waiting for me to process them. Okay? And once again, the watermark is in the watermark folder. That's ready to go. So when that is done, you can now run your shortcut. And the idea is the folders are already created. Your watermark just sits in this folder. Anytime you need to watermark a bunch of images, you export those images, and then you run the shortcut, and then boom, it's done. So let's do that. We're going to go into shortcuts, and we're going to run the batch watermark images shortcut. And I'm going to open it up so you can just kind of see it running through the steps. When I hit play, the first thing it asks me is, do you want to preview the placement of the watermark? And I gave you an option for this because if you use the same watermark all the time, after a period of time, you'll probably know exactly where you want to place it and how you want to place it, and you won't need to preview it. But in the beginning, you'll need to preview it to figure out where it needs to go and if it's going to look good. So I'm going to say yes, and when I say yes, that's going to trigger the preview module to run. So I hit yes, and you can see right down here underneath, if I choose yes, it says run shortcut SHP watermark preview module. So we're going to hit yes here, and it's going to ask me, where do I want to place the watermark? So I'm going to say I want to place it in the bottom left corner of the image. That's where I tend to place mine, is the bottom left or bottom right. So we're going to say the bottom left here. And then it says, how big do you want the watermark to be in relation to the image? And this is as a percentage. So do you want it to be 10% of the width of the image, 20%, 30%, 40%, or more? Or you could put custom. You could choose a custom size. So for the sake of the example, I'm going to go with custom, and I'm going to say 80%. It's going to look terrible, but I want to show you what it looks like. So you put the percent in, and then it grabs the first image. It grabs an image out of the folder, and it shows you what that watermark will look like. And you look at this and you go, okay, that looks terrible. That watermark is huge. I don't like that, so I need to change it. When you're done previewing the image, you need to hit this done up at the top here, because this is the image preview showing you what it's going to look like. So when you hit done, it asks you, do you need to adjust the size or the placement of the watermark? And my answer here is very clearly yes, because that looked terrible. So we're going to hit yes, and it's going to rerun the preview module. So we still want to go with the bottom left, but now I'm going to go with a more reasonable 20% and see what that looks like. And I think that looks pretty good right there. Now, just to show you, I'm going to hit done again and I want to adjust it one more time. And let's say I wanted to put it in the center. Let's say this was a bunch of images that you want to have a client preview. and you want it 40%, and you want it right in the middle so that it covers up the important stuff. You can put it there too. So it gives you options for placement, and it gives you custom sizing for your custom watermark, which is what I love about this. So once again, bottom left, and then we'll go with the 20%. And we know that looks good, so we're going to hit done. And now I no longer need to change the placement. And then it just runs and finishes by taking all of those images, and it places the watermark on top of them using the parameters we just described, which is 20% and in the bottom left-hand corner. Now, it has finished that process, and look at what it's asking now. It says, do you want to delete the unwatermarked images? And your answer to this may be no. I'm going to say yes, but here's the important thing. You should not, if you choose no, you should not leave those images in that folder. Because if you leave them in the folder, the next time you run the watermarking shortcut, it'll re-watermark all of the images that are sitting there. So I like to think of these as temporary files, the images that we want to watermark. And as a result, you should delete them. And if you're not going to delete them, if you have another purpose for them, then you should most definitely move them out of the folder. So I'm going to say yes. And if I say yes, this is stupid annoying, but I literally cannot change this. It asks you like 4 times if you're sure you want to delete the files. Now, to make it very clear, we're not deleting the watermarked images. We're deleting the images that we batch exported to be watermarked. So I'm going to say delete, and I'm going to say it again, and I'm going to say it again, and now finally it's all done. So if we go to the folder here, once again, we are inside of iCloud Drive, and we are in the Shortcuts folder, and we are in the Watermarking folder, and my to be watermarked folder is now empty, which is perfect. That's what I wanted, because that's a temporary holding spot. And if we go back out and we look at the Watermarked Images folder, now take a look. Every single one of my images has the watermark placed in the lower left-hand corner, taking up 20% of the width of the image. And you know what? It's perfect. You can see it down there in every single one of my images. Just like that, consistent, nice, even, right where you want it to be. So this is the shortcut that I've created. And now what I want to do is take a walk through the steps of this shortcut and how it's made and what it does. So if you wanted to recreate this yourself, you could. Once again, if you want to grab this shortcut, you can hop over to this link and you can get the shortcut. It's $2.99. Frank, that's a good question. With this shortcut, you cannot change the position of the watermark for each photo, but I could make a shortcut that would allow you to place the watermark on every single image and choose the location. That would be a different shortcut, and I didn't do that as an option for this because the idea of this is just a quick batch where they're all going in the same place and it's all going to be the same proportion to the image. But if that's a shortcut that people would be interested in, I could pretty easily modify what I already have and create a new shortcut that would allow you to look at every single image and choose exactly where the watermark's going to go in each image. So because on some of those, you know, as an example on this one with the bottom right-hand corner, it gets a little bit lost here. So it might be better in the upper right-hand corner, right? And or upper left-hand corner. So it might be that's a shortcut I could make, is what I'm saying. So if you guys would be interested in a shortcut that allows you to place it on every single image, let me know, and I'll think about making one of those. So let's take a look at how this is made. For $2.99, it saves me the hassle. Awesome, I'm glad it does. That's the idea behind these, is to save you guys time and energy. That's why I make them, is to save myself time and energy. And I don't often watermark, but sometimes you do just need to put a watermark on a whole bunch of images and you want it to look good, and this can do that for you. Okay, so let's take a look at what happens in this shortcut. So this is the batch watermark images shortcut. And Frank says, gotcha, thanks, just curious, not currently using the iPad to edit. Okay, I totally understand, and that makes sense. So I'm going to walk through the steps of this shortcut. I'm not going to go super in-depth because this would be probably way too long a stream for that, but I do want to give you an overview of the steps and how this works. Let's see. Antonia says it would be interesting to have an option to pick the watermark in case you have different color versions of the watermark depending on the image you are processing. That's another thing I thought of, Antonio. So what I'm hearing is you guys like the idea of having more options and having the ability to change the placement on a per image basis and or change the actual watermark being used on a per image basis. Am I hearing that correctly? Let me know in the chat. And if that's the case, I'll take a look at making a shortcut that will do that, because I think that's absolutely possible. Okay, so let's walk through this shortcut here, and I'll show you how this works. The very first thing it does is actually looks for a temporary text file. And that temporary text file comes from the preview module if you invoked the preview option. And the reason for that is because at the end of the preview module, it actually re-invokes the batch watermarking images shortcut. So these shortcuts call out to each other. So this one has to look for the results that may have come from the preview module. And if that exists, then it gets the information from that module, from that file, which is where the watermark should be placed and what size the watermark should be in relation to the image. And that's what this dictionary stuff is. It's getting the values out of that file. And then it's checking for that file. And if the file exists, it just goes and it does the watermarking. Tom, thank you very much. I'm glad that this is something that you'll find helpful. And if you have any problems with it, definitely let me know. But hopefully it works for you as well as it's been working for me. I've been testing this for a couple of days now to make sure everything works right. Okay, so it gets the dictionary and it gets the information and it looks for the data. And if the data exists in that temporary file, then it takes that information, and what it does is it grabs your watermark, and then it grabs all of the images that need to be watermarked. Okay? And then it goes to the watermarking dictionary and it gets the size value, which is what size we want the watermark to be. And it gets the placement value also from the file, from the preview module. And then it looks at the image width, the file that you want to watermark, and it multiplies that by the percentage value, which is the width that you want the watermark to be, that 10, 20, 30, 40, 50%. And it uses that to resize the watermark so that the watermark is the appropriate size when it's placed. And then it grabs the photo and it uses this overlay image tool to grab the watermark and the resized image and place it exactly where it's supposed to be at the size it's supposed to be. And then it saves that file into the watermarked images. And it just does that over and over and over again until all of the images have been processed. Okay? And now, we got to jump back up. If that temporary file doesn't exist, then it skips all of that stuff and it comes down here and it asks you if you need to preview the watermark or not. And if you say yes, it runs the preview module. So I'll show you the preview module in a minute. But if you say yes, you can see right here, it says run the watermark preview module. And then if you say no, because you already know exactly where you want to place it, it just asks you where do you want to place it and what size do you want it to be. And then it does the exact same thing that I just walked you through up above, which is grab the watermark, grab the images, get the width detail of the watermark to be watermarked image, and resize the watermark to place it and make it look exactly the way you want it to look. So that's what all of this is doing. And then at the very end, it's asking you if you want to delete the files or not. And that's basically all that happens here. It's a bunch of steps and it's a bunch of logic to make it work the way you want it to work, but that's the basic process. And now I wanted to show you the actual Watermark Preview module so you know what's happening there. With the Watermark Preview, it asks you the same questions: where do you want to place it and how big you want it to be. And then it grabs all of the files, and it just grabs one photo from the watermarked files as an example so you can see what it looks like. And it does the calculation again to size the watermark based on the percentage you inputted and place it. And then it uses, I have to get down here because I'm skipping over a bunch of this stuff. It uses this quick look tool right here to preview the image for you. And then once it's previewed, it asks you, do you want to adjust the size of the image or the watermark or the placement? And if you say yes, it reruns itself. And if you say no, it saves the data into that temporary file, and then it calls out and runs the batch watermark images to take you back to the batch watermark in the first place. Yes, Edgar, the watermark goes in the folder called watermark. That's exactly right. So that's how this shortcut works. Again, if you do decide to purchase it, which you can do at this link right here, if you do decide to purchase it, it's $2.99, and it actually includes 3 shortcuts: the setup shortcut, the preview module, and then the actual batch watermark shortcut itself. And all of the instructions for installing those are included, obviously, with your purchase, so it tells you exactly what to do and how to install them and how to use the shortcut, which is what I just covered here now. So, do you guys have any questions about any of this, whether it's this specific shortcut or using shortcuts in general? Because that's the bulk of what I wanted to show you today, is how this shortcut works and what I did, and to see what else. And I'm actually going to take a couple of notes because I like the ideas that you guys had. Frank, your idea of changing the placement on a per image basis, and Antonio's idea of being able to pick a different watermark based upon different color versions and the image itself. So I'm going to make notes of that just by copying your comments right now so I don't lose them, and then look at how I might do those things. Here we go. Frank's, can you change the watermark for each photo? Okay. Thanks, I'm pretty good at coming up with ideas. Absolutely, right? Absolutely. Hey, Edith, how you going? How you doing? Okay, so I'm just going to leave it open for another minute or two to see if anybody has any questions about any of this, whether it's this specific shortcut or iPad editing in general or creating shortcuts to help you do your work on your iPad or anything else. Drop those into the chat and I'll be happy to answer them. And if not, I will wrap up this stream and call this a night. And I just need to figure out how to get paid for coming up with ideas. I hear you on that, Frank. I absolutely hear you on that. And also, the thing I would like to ask is, how do you like this format of me sitting down and doing a live tutorial rather than making just a regular video? I'm trying this out because I'm trying to make some changes in how I do things to help me out better, essentially, because I've been struggling with a lot of different things personally and business-wise and whatnot. So I don't want to go deep into that, but the bottom line is I want to know what you guys think of doing this sort of live tutorial presentation. I'm interested in importing photos in RAW to Lightroom directly now that iPad, yes. Okay, yes, Antonio, so here's the deal. I actually have a shortcut that does that. It's actually, where did it go? It's sitting right in here. I just got to find it. Import from SD card to Lightroom. It's this one right here. And it's a super duper simple shortcut. But the problem is the iPad beta, which goes back to the question that, I'm not sure if it was your question, Antonio, or somebody else's. Yeah, it was your question. This shortcut no longer works right now because of the beta. So I'm also interested in that, and I think what has to happen here is that Lightroom has to update, because I submitted a couple of bug reports to Apple on this, and their response back was that I have to wait for the app developer to update their app for iOS 13. I'm with you on that, Antonio. And as soon as something changes and I can update the shortcut, so that it will actually work, I'm going to update that shortcut, and I'm going to also send that new version of the shortcut out to anybody who purchased the other one previously, so that I know they have an updated and working shortcut. This is nice because there's the interaction. Yeah, absolutely. I like it because you can ask questions right when it's fresh. Yep. That's kind of what I wanted to try out. And I mean, to be honest, this is much easier for me because recording a video, editing a video, and doing all the production, it's a shit ton of work, to be perfectly honest. And it's not that I'm not prepping for these things. Obviously I am, but there's a whole lot of back-end stuff that I'm basically just not doing anymore because I'm not editing, I'm not writing a script, I'm not, thinking about B-roll and all of these other things. So, all right, if there aren't any more questions, I think I'll wrap this up. I'll just leave this open for another moment, and I'll just say one more time, if you would like to get the shortcut, you can grab the shortcut right here. Also, if you want to make sure this format feels more like one-on-one coaching, really. Yeah, it absolutely does, and that's something that I certainly appreciate. I know that the interaction is valuable, and being able to answer questions at the moment is really helpful because it can clarify things that maybe I didn't think to clarify in a video when I made the video, and that can be a mistake on my part when I make a video. So this I think it has a lot of I think this format has a lot of potential. Okay, so I don't think we have any more questions, so I'm going to wrap this up. So let me say this. If you like this, please do me a favor and hit that like button. And if you're not already and you want to, hit subscribe. That would be fantastic. And also, if you want to make sure you don't miss any of my live streams, you could hit that bell icon so you get the actual notification when I go live. And I might create an email list just to make sure, just to email out when I'm going to do these. But right now the plan is every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Central, which is 11 p.m. GMT/UTC time. Does PNG file size for Watermark matter? It doesn't really, because what's going to happen is it does a little bit. So what I recommend, Tom, is that you have a larger Watermark file, because sizing something that's larger down to be small and have it look good is easy. But if you start with a small watermark file and you want to have a large watermark for some reason, when you size that small watermark file up to be larger, it can degrade the image and make it look bad. So I recommend a larger watermark file to start with, and let the shortcut size it to be exactly the size you need it to be. Hey, Mark, how's it going? Edith, as of right now, I don't know, honestly. I am open to doing other live tutorials on other topics, but I would need to see what people want me to do live tutorials on. And doing a live tutorial is limited because it's got to be in the studio. So I'm not sure yet. As of right now, the ones I have planned are for editing on the iPad, but I'm open to doing other things if that's what people would like and are interested in. So the thing to do is to tell me what you're interested in. You can send me a message, you can leave a comment, you can email me at spiros@selfhelpphotographer.com. I'm open to all of that stuff and open to your input and feedback, because this is, us together figuring out how to make this work. Okay, so with that note, the thing with the live session versus the recorded one is how long would a live session be relevant versus something you plan more carefully? Well, I still plan to plan the live sessions carefully. I don't mean to imply that I'm just sitting down and flying this by the seat of my pants. The main difference is that the final form is different than what a recorded video might be. But it's a relevant question, and the answer that I have is I don't actually know. because I don't know how these videos, because they're gonna stay on my channel as videos. I don't know how they're going to be received longer term, and I'm going to look at my analytics and see what happens with them, and make a determination to see if doing this over the long term makes sense or not. So it's a very good question, Antonio, and I honestly don't have an answer to it right now, but I hope to at some point in the future. Okay, on that note, I'm going to wrap this up. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining me for this first live tutorial. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm open to suggestions, so go ahead and leave those in the comments. And I do have a question for anybody who's watching, whether it's live or after the fact, which is, what shortcuts would you like to see me make and learn how to make? Let me know down in the comments, and then make sure you get out there and take some damn photos. Bye, everybody. Okay, I gotta find my stop button. Good night.